show. Come on, what have we had? We've had 3 minutes. We've told you what's coming up on the show, but this big story this week, without any shadow of a doubt, is the news that it is signed. Yes, I know that you're sceptical because you've heard us say this on many occasions.
No, you're sceptical.
No, I'm not.
You've always been sceptical.
Not recently, I haven't.
You've been very sceptical about whether the Fury-Usyk fight would happen.
Rightfully so. But of the last 3 to 4 weeks, I'm on record saying that I think it will be the finisher to the Riyadh season.
I think it'll be before that. I think it'll be January. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
But I do think you've got to pull back a little bit and stop criticising Tyson Fury.
Why?
Because he's taking a warm-up fight against Francis Ngannou. It's a big payday.
It's not a fight.
It is a fight.
It's not a fight.
I'm seeing it as a fight.
Okay.
You don't need to. But then I'm seeing Fury and Usyk coming after that. Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder's just collapsed completely.
Yeah.
And as I've said to you all along, you cannot make things happen. Things will happen in terms of timing, ego, and money. And that's how heavyweight boxing works.
That doesn't make it right, though.
It's not a question of whether it's right, it's just how it works. There's no right or wrong about it. It doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. There's no right or wrong.
Let me put something towards you then, all right? Earlier this year, we had a fight between Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. Did we or did we not?
It's not heavyweights.
I don't care.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's not heavyweights. We have only had one undisputed heavyweight title fight in the last 25 years. And there's a reason for it. Promoters and broadcasters use the heavyweight belts to make money, and it's an inexact science, and it's, like you say, it feels like a lawless and even immoral science at times, but that's the way that heavyweight boxing's always been. It's so lawless that you cannot control it. And I think we need to rejoice right now.
I'm rejoicing. Listen, what you've just said there is I agree with, because ego and greed have been satisfied. That's where we're at.
Well, it's not greed, it's just money.
Well, it is greed.
No, it's not. I don't think it is greed.
Gareth, be honest, right?
I am being honest.
There's been plenty of opportunities over the last 5 years to make the undisputed fight.
How many years did we wait for Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather? 5. Why?
That's not
timing, money,
that's
and
not
ego. But they were they were the heavyweights of the era, I would have said. They were the heavyweight stars of the era.
Yeah, but they weren't. They're not heavyweights, are they?
No, they're not heavyweights.
You're talking about profile, but then 2 minutes ago when I was talking about Ryan Garcia and profile and Gervonta Davis.
But they're not big like Mayweather and Pacquiao were. They're not on the same level.
Ryan Garcia, from a social media point of view,
from a social media point of view, yes,
water.
but they're not crossover mainstream stars.
My point with that fight is this, right? And Carl Froch has said this on plenty of occasions. If a fighter wants to make a fight, they can make a fight.
I agree.
So therefore, over the last 5 years, we've had plenty of opportunity to make the undisputed fight, and ego, greed, various other bits.
An
like
arbitration case got in the way. I agree.
Has got in the way of being able to manipulate and make this fight.
Yep.
Now, from a fan's point of view, if you take a step back, like you say, you're on the inside, so you know a lot of things. But if you take a step back from a fan's point of view and you look at this, all you see is a heavyweight saying a lot of things, with them not becoming true. And that goes on and on and on. And it becomes the common denominator in a lot of these conversations. There has been plenty of opportunity for Tyson Fury to make an undisputed fight. The reason why that's not happened is because of what you're highlighting. Ego and greed. Now...
From Usyk as well.
I'm not denying that.
They're both of them. That's the thing. That's the key to it. It's all of them.
I'm not denying that.
And their ages.
Well, I thought you were going to say, and their agents. And
age,
people that are eating off their place as well have also got
their
involved
ages, where they are at in their career. They're all cashing out.
Anyway.
It's that time.
The relationship that Frank Warren, George Warren, and the guys at Queensberry have managed to strike up with Saudi Arabia, they've managed to circumnavigate, as we highlighted on the show a couple of weeks ago, they're not now using an intermediary, they're going straight to the government, and therefore they've unlocked this big vat of money. As highlighted by yourself this week in a conversation that you had with Bob Arum. $100 million on the table for Tyson Fury for 2 fights. One of them is a walk in the park, one of them's a test. I still think he wins, but it's a proper test. And, like you said, the historical relevance of that fight is absolutely astronomical for the sport, for all the fans, and who knows? This might be the kickstart of something incredibly special, a really special period.
It was always going to be.
I hope it was.
It was always going to be.
It wasn't. Without that money, it was never going to happen.
But that money was always going to be there. This has been in the works for several months. And, rather like... there were promises made by other sides in the Middle East that haven't come to fruition as well. From Skills Challenge haven't delivered for Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. It's moved sideways. As Eddie Hearns revealed this week, Wilder and Joshua is dead in the water right now. And I feel for them, because that looked like an amazing fight. And I'm not sitting here defending the heavyweights who have waited for this fight, this undisputed fight. What I'm saying is, this is the way it's happened. They knew in April that there was going to be a lot more money available if they went to the Middle East to have it than having it at Wembley Stadium. Much as I'd love to have had it at Wembley Stadium on April the 29th, much as I'd love to have had, if you recall, we were very, very close to having two fight deal with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury in 2020?
Before arbitration, you're talking now?
Yeah, before arbitration, or 2021. So that scuppered it. It would have happened.
Well, it was done.
It was a done deal. There's no question it was a done deal. But Wilder winning his case moved Fury to America. Fury was going to take that fight. There's no question he would have pulled out.
They were both taking the fight. It was done. It was done.
So in some ways, I think my disappointment is that we haven't seen Fury and Joshua
I don't think we will.
No, I don't think we will. I think we may see it down the line. As a kind of final fight that both men have for the British public. And the great thing is about the Saudi Arabian time zone is it's prime time for us. Yeah. It's not a 4 a.m, 5 a.m. thing that we're used to doing the entire time. Anyway, I cut across you. I wanted to, because you've been very sceptical about it. We're both insiders in the sport. I do think that everyone's at the same game in that heavyweight division, because they're all big names. The top 4 or 5 are big names, and now Zhang is as well. Frankly, Zhili Zhang, after beating Joyce last weekend, I think he's a name in that mix as well.
Head of Queensberry Promotions, Frank Warren, joined the Drive show a little earlier on this week following the announcement that the fight had been signed. He said that he's under no doubt that it's going to happen.
Nothing's going to get in the way of this. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. That's why the two guys are signed. They have tremendous belief in their respective talents. They both think they're the best, and we will find out. And as I say, the fight that everybody's been craving for, been driving me mad about for God knows how long, we've delivered it. Number 1, number 2. For me, Tyson's number 1, Usyk's number 2. 4 belts on the line, never happened before. This is history-making fight. This is the biggest heavyweight fight of this century.
He's not wrong. It is absolutely the biggest heavyweight fight of this century, because, as Gareth highlighted a moment or two ago, 24 years it has been since we've been able to crown a undisputed heavyweight champion.
It's the only undisputed heavyweight fight of this century, because it was in the last century.
Yeah, of course, 1999.
It's the only one, and but it is the biggest one, but it's the only one. And I think that needs to be looked at. I think if I had a nickel, to put my nickel in the machine and speak to the great soothsayer and the crystal ball, that's shocking, really. And even if you go back to the 80s, it took Don King and it took HBO to do a series, and this young man, this bristling young 5'11" heavyweight, 16 stone, 15 stone, just under 16 stone, coming on Mike Tyson to tear up the script, and beat Trevor Berbick and become a world champion, the heavyweight world champion, the youngest ever at the age of 20. Mm-hmm. That's what revolutionised that era, really. And then, Lennox Lewis ended in the early 2000s. And that was a great 10-year era, 12-year era. And I've said it, and I agree with you, because we've both said this several times in the last year and a half. There are still 4 or 5 heavyweight fights in this era that need to happen. Fury and Usyk, that's brilliant. Wilder and Joshua, yes please. Wilder and Usyk, yes please. Now, Zhili Zhang and Wilder, Zhili Zhang and Joshua. Let's see them all. Let's see them all. Even Fury and Zhili Zhang, I'd like to see.
Just on what you said there about the historical relevance of the fight, Tyson Spinks, I think I'm right in saying this, Tyson Spinks is the last time that you had 2 undefeated fighters going into an undisputed heavyweight championship fight, which is early 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is. Listen, the great thing about Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk is you've got a guy with an amazing story, an extraordinary comeback story in Tyson Fury, who no one knew he was going to dominate Vladimir Klitschko and outpoint him on that night in Dusseldorf in 2015, and then plunge into darkness and put on 10 stone and, you know, go and take drugs and alcohol and binge and lose all the titles and not have a rematch with Klitschko and go into the wilderness for 2 years, and then come back and lose 10 stone and have 2 facile warm-up fights, and then go in on that night when we were at the Battle of Los Angeles in 2018, and his extraordinary story, and he's still undefeated. And he's been down, 5 times in his career. I think Cunningham put him down, the cruiserweight Steve Cunningham. Wilder's put him down 4 times, and he's still undefeated. In 2 reigns, having held all the belts in 2 reigns. Oleksandr Usyk, emulating his great hero Evander Holyfield, winning the Olympic gold in London, emulating his hero Evander Holyfield, becoming undisputed cruiserweight champion and stepping up, and in 5 fights having proved that he's actually brilliant at heavyweight and holding 3 of the belts. And he's 1 fight away, 1 win away from emulating Holyfield and joining him in the pantheon of the great legends of heavyweight boxing. Ditto Fury, if he can beat, I don't know, does he just need to beat Usyk to cement the era as the number 1?
Really interesting question, because there'll be fans out there that do need to see the Anthony Joshua fight. For me, I don't need to see it. I think that this is the fight. This is it. The best against the best. I think the majority of people will conclude that this is number 1 against number 2. Of course, there's other fights out there that you don't want Tyson Fury to win and then clear off. You want him to stay around and have other fights. Of course you do. But this fight, for me, stylistically, when we're talking about technicians in a boxing ring, it's the best fight that you can possibly make in the heavyweight division.
It is. And I've got to say as well done, His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh, for getting it over the line and saying no. As Bob Arum said to me in the week, money seems to be no object to get this fight on, and it's their investment that's made it happen. Money's no object, he's saying. You know, there's huge figures bandied around, hundreds of millions of US dollars going into this fight, because they are serious about investing in the heavyweight division, because that's what they want to do. We've got 5 heavyweight fights on that card now, on the Francis Ngannou Tyson Fury fight, and I know that you think he's got no chance at all, but I ask people every week in my little podcast that I'm doing on the promotion that.
And who's answering that question? Who's answering the question and saying that Francis Ngannou has a chance?
Lots of people are saying you mustn't write him off, that early on he's going to be dangerous, he's got to let his hands go.
Right? You know the difference, because you're well educated on MMA, right? So you know the difference between boxing and MMA. You know. I understand that you might be speaking to people that don't know too much about MMA, and they're saying, oh, this guy punches really, really hard, and this might happen, and this might happen. But you know, we've seen this dance before with Floyd and Conor. We've seen this dance. We know that Tyson Fury will carry him for as long as he wants to carry him, and then he'll take him out.
I think it's slightly different that it's heavyweights.
Maybe, because of the power, I get that.
Yeah, because of the power that Ngannou carries, the biggest punch on earth. I mean, I've seen him busting some moves with Mike Tyson and training with Mike Tyson and feel that Ngannou is, Mike Tyson's going to be clever and say, look, there's your target. It's not his head, it's his body. You hit his body and you go early. As Tunde Ajayi, Anthony Yard's trainer, told me last week, he said, this is a fight. If I was in the corner with Ngannou and I was in camp, roadman science. Basically, you take it back to basics, you put your head in early, you grab hold of him, you hit him with everything we've got, you push him into corners, you grab hold of him again, you tie him up, you just let your hands go. Now, Francis is going to gas after 3 or 4 rounds, I think. Mm-hmm. I think Mike, you can see in those videos that Mike Tyson's doing with him, he is exhausting him. See the giant legs on Ngannou. You can even see his arms tired at the end of a session.
Yep.
But listen, I see Fury as a massive favourite in that fight, and I don't want him to get a head clash and get cut.
No,
and the Usyk fight is delayed,
or break a hand or something like that,
or break a hand or do whatever. So we want to see that fight happen. But at the same time, on that card, on that fight between Fury and Ngannou, because if Ngannou wins,
you keep saying fight.
I do.
Smiling.
I do. It's not an exhibition. There's going to be.
I know you know.
Yeah, but they're not going to do an exhibition. It's a fight.
It's a fight.
Exactly.
They're going to turn up and have a go.
So there's also 4 fights I'm really interested in on that card. 5, actually. Jack McGann fighting Roberto Duran Jr. There's an MMA fighter crossing over into boxing who I think will become a champion.
It's not his debut, though, is it? He has been boxing for a long time.
No, but again, he's working hard at it. And I think he'll be a guy who becomes at least a British or European, and maybe even he's a destroyer. There's no doubt about it. Great fighter. And he will go back to MMA, I think. And he may even get in the UFC one day. But the heavyweight fights... Arslanbek Makhmudov, I'm very excited about. That man is a tank. Signed by Bob Arum now. He's on the card. Martin Bakole and Carlos Takam. Love that on the card. Joseph Parker against Simon Keane. I think
it's a Joe Parker win.
He's a big favourite in that one. David Adeleye and Fabio Wardley.
That's a great fight.
That's gonna lead us into the main fight. It's brilliant. The card's stacking up. And believe me, what I'm hearing behind the scenes, Fury versus Usyk is going to be even bigger.
I have no doubt.
Don't be surprised, I think, if we end up with Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder fighting at some point in the Riyadh season. That's what I feel will happen. Because why wouldn't the Saudi Arabians, why do they need to just work with one promoter? Why can't they work with everyone?
They won't. As I said, I've said this countless times over the last couple of weeks. There's a reason why the WBC have manoeuvred Anthony Joshua into number 2. They will call a final eliminator. And if Matchroom and PBC can't come to some type of deal, that's going to go to purse bid. There's only one person on the planet that's winning that purse bid, with all due respect to Matchroom and PBC. It'll go to the pockets that are in Saudi Arabia. And then I would not be surprised if you do end up getting to see Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder as a world title eliminator for the WBC championship.